welcome Bill Ostowski.
Okay, so I'm going to start with the backstory behind phrase-based indexing. You probably never ever heard of the largest search engine that ever existed. Never. It was called Recall, and it indexed like 90 billion pages. Okay, it was a search engine that was used for the Internet Archives, and you could search the Internet Archives and all the old versions of pages with this. It was a demo for Internet Archives in 2003, and the person who was demoing it did it for free for the Internet Archives. Let them use it. It disappeared, and there was this cryptic message on CNET that Google had bought some technology, search technology around that time. The person who created it went to work for Google about 2-3 weeks later. And so her name's on a number of patents from Google that involve something called phrase-based indexing. And there are about 8 or 9 of them. She left Google a couple of years ago, started a search engine called Cool, which was spelled C-U-I-L, and then another L at the beginning. They dropped an L, and it's maybe the reason why you can find it. That went bust. It was supposed to be a Google killer. It died. She went back to work for Google. They hired her right away. But she came up with this phrase-based indexing concept. It may not work at Google. It looks like it's at work in Google. Okay, let's get it back here. Sorry. I got it. All right. Okay. How many of you have heard of Google bombing?
Santor.
Okay. The most famous one is probably related to George Bush. Some people decided it would be funny if when people search for miserable failure, the biography of George Bush on the White House page showed up. And a lot of people linked to that page using the anchor text, miserable failure. Now, miserable failure, it's a word, it's a phrase. Google looks at anchor text in links. In David's presentation, he talked about the power of links. There are a couple ways of looking at the power of links. One is the words used in them. The other is a link weight, a popularity, a number of links, the quality of the site pointing to you. But link text is important. Google bombing happens with phrases that tend to be pointed at people's websites. The first one was probably one, there was a joke. Somebody decided his developer friend should rank well for talentless hack. And he and a bunch of other people spread that out, and they got it to rank for that. See, so Rick Santorum has one pointed at him. There was one French military victories, and the page you ended up landing on was no results found. Okay, so why don't I mention Google bombing? I did that again. Okay, phrase-based indexing is when Google goes and looks at documents on the web, identifies phrases, good phrases, bad phrases, and collects what it thinks are the good phrases. And it uses those good phrases in its index in a few different ways. For instance, it'll go out, it'll look at phrases that tend to show up with other phrases. So for instance, sometimes phrases mean more than one thing too. So, They try to be careful with that. Okay, so we have co-occurring phrases. So if I wanted to try to optimize a web page for the term baseball stadium, say I start a new baseball stadium, Yankee Stadium, Citibank Park, so on. Might want people to find baseball stadium. I'm going to come up with a bunch of related words. And you know, just to pull some out of thin air, home plate, pitcher's mound, left field, dugout, so on, concession stands. Those are all related phrases. If you're going to write about baseball stadium, there's a chance you may use some of those words on your page. They're related, okay? How do you stop Google bombing? You don't give any weight to phrases that have nothing to do with the page being linked to. Okay? When George Bush was Google bombed for the term miserable failure, Google said, oh, you know, a year or two later or whatever, we fixed it. You no longer get the bio of the president on the White House website on the term miserable failure. But then, somebody at the White House rewrote the page, they included the word failure on the page, and all of a sudden, the page ranks again for the phrase miserable failure. Because the word failure is on the page, it's related to miserable failure. Okay, phrase-based indexing, when the first patent came out, I was attracted to this little paragraph that said, we have this problem with Google called Google bombing. Phrase-based indexing fixes that. It fixes that by maybe not passing along anchor text when it's completely unrelated, when it's got nothing to do with the page. Now, there's probably some threshold above which there's so many links, it doesn't matter. So if you search for click here, you get to the download page for the Flash player. It doesn't have the words click here on it once. It's probably not related to the phrase click here, but there are millions and millions and millions of links pointing to that page with the phrase click here. So there's probably some sort of threshold above which it doesn't matter if it's related or not. But here, if we're going to write a page about baseball stadiums, we're probably going to want related words on that page. We're probably going to want related words in our links to that page. So we need to find a way to find out what these related words are. Okay. Keyword research in a nutshell. And here's where we're going to get into the gluten-free stuff soon. Okay, you're doing keyword research. There's certain steps you want to take. What are the objectives of a business owner? You own a bakery. You want to sell to people in the neighborhood. You want to sell to restaurants that may use your bread. You may want to cater events. You may want to make cakes for weddings and so on. You may want to, bakery near me makes a really good moonshine chocolate cake that they sell through the web. And they sell a lot of them. So what are your objectives? Define those. Who are your audiences? We may look at personas. We may decide that we want to know who is that local consumer coming in your door in the morning to get a pastry and coffee? Who is the person who buys for the restaurant? Who is the person who is planning a wedding and is going to decide to find the baker? Who are those people? What are they like? How old are they? Are they male? Are they female? What can I put on my page? What words can I use that they're going to search for to find my website, right? You're going to give them tasks to perform once they come to your website. So you've got persona. You've got the person who is buying bread for local restaurants. Build a page for them. Build a couple pages for them. Let them know about buying in bulk from you. Let them know what time you open in the morning, or how you work in terms of getting bread to the restaurant. You have a truck that drives around. Doing keyword research, you visit related sites. You go to competitor sites, forums, industry news sources. You look at the language you use. You look at the phrases. You go to Google keyword tool, look at search volumes to see how many people actually search for that stuff every month. You try to do competitive analysis. You may do searches for Olin title, Olin anchor. Let's see. So keyword tool. You do Olin title searches for your phrase, Olin anchor searches for your phrase. My phrase here happens to be gluten-free flour. So that's why I talked about a bakery. So we've got the GreatTractorFarm.com website. We've got they sell gluten-free flour. The owner has celiac disease. He can't eat gluten. He decided he's going to help himself and help other people. He's going to work with a local mill, come up with flour made of rice and some other products, and he's going to try to sell it to consumers directly from his site. He's going to try to sell it to people who might use it in products, like the different pastas you see in frozen sections of the supermarket. He's going to sell it to restaurants. He has a pizzeria making gluten-free crusts. And this isn't, I changed the name.
I didn't recognize it, and I thought I wasn't putting up on all of the gluten.
Hey, Bill.
He's got a couple pizzerias that are making their crust out of gluten-free flour, and the gluten-free flour pizzas are outselling the regular pizzas like 2 to 1, because people actually like the taste better.
In her specific instance, wouldn't it be better off for her to hold like contests from her place there, where she could go ahead and access the person's information for email and phone number? I mean, this way she could text, she could actually run a text-based campaign to actually go ahead and to deliver her specials to each person.
There are lots of different tactics that you can try. You know, the beginning step, the initial step is knowing what you actually want to do, who to sell it to. Do you want to sell retail? Do you want to sell it to distributors? Do you want your stuff showing up on the shelves of Walmart and Kmart and any other mart? Do you want to have local restaurants sell it? Do you want to have people sell it around the world? You've got this on your objectives, on who your audience is. If you're going to ship the stuff out the door from a warehouse or by freight, you know, those are all decisions you have to make. Regardless, we're going to decide, let's start our keyword research. Let's pick out a few terms that we think are really good. Let's do some research on, in this case, I chose gluten-free flour. It seems obvious. That's what we make. That's what people are going to search for. That's what we want to be found for, okay? So we do our keyword research. We see what kind of search volume is there. We're getting like, in the U.S., in English, not on phones, just desktops and laptops, we're getting 3,600 average a month over the last 12 months. We're using exact match searches, left column. We're not looking at broad match. It's not always completely accurate, but it gives you some sense, some idea that you can compare against other terms we use in keyword research. We're looking at the all-in title, all-in anchor type searches to see how many places those appear. If somebody's got gluten-free flour in the title of their page, they're writing about gluten-free flour. If it says there are 100 results, that's pretty good. If it says there's 1,000, it's not too bad. If it says there's 90 million, it's like, maybe we'll think about another term, okay? But you want to come up with a big list spreadsheet of terms that you might want to optimize for and compare them against each other and look at factors like this. The all-in anchor is, you know, how many people are linking to a page using that includes the phrase gluten-free flour. So that's another thing where you can see, get some sense of competition. You're also going to want to actually go look at the search results. Look at what pages are there. See who your competitors for that term might be. Get some idea of how difficult it might be to compete against them. But another thing you're going to be doing here, because we're in the process of doing keyword research, we haven't come up with a big, huge list and then start plugging these numbers in. Instead, we've identified some preliminary terms that we think are pretty good. We're going to go to these search results, and And we're going to look at some of these other pages that rank for those terms. We're going to see what they write about. We're going to see, what phrases they use. We're going to collect those phrases, like I did with the baseball stadium slide. I've got a gluten-free flour slide, and I went through the top 10 results. I went through the top 100. Part of phrase-based indexing is the search engine will rank pages normally. It'll show you the top 10 on the front page. You scroll on, you get the next top 10, whatever. Google may go in, take the top 110, top 100, top 1,000 pages, look for all the good phrases on those pages. And a good phrase is like the President of the United States. It's altogether one meaning, one concept, one thing. A bad phrase is the President of the what, right? It's not a good phrase. So search engine may go to the top 10, top 100, top 1,000 pages for a specific keyword and look and see what all the good phrases are on those pages. And it may say, okay, on 70% of the pages we visited in the top 100, they all had all-purpose flour. On 65%, they all had wheat-free. On 50%, they all had kosher. And yes, a single word can be a phrase. Okay? And the search engine may then go in and say, okay, so we've got these pages that all tend to have a good percentage of these same phrases. Let's move them up a bit, because those are words that tend to be on pages about gluten-free flour. So they're more relevant for that phrase than the ones that don't mention some of these other things. And let's move, if you move something up, something moves down, right? Okay. Now, all the other ranking factors fit in: the links, the anchor text pointing to your page, the content on your page. All that still factors, and that's what Google takes, as its initial set of the top 10 or top 100 or top 1,000 before it re-ranks them. So it's got that. It looks at these phrases, how often they appear, and it re-ranks them. It'll move them up. It'll demote, reduce some others. Okay, that's how phrase-based indexing works. So what's to stop us from going, as we're doing our keyword research, going through these and identifying all the phrases that tend to appear? Not only does it give us some help with keyword research, it gives us some ideas for creating content, getting ideas of what we're going to write about. So we collect the phrases that tend to appear in different sites, see how often they tend to appear. We get ideas for what we're going to write about, and we do keyword research all at the same time. Yes?
So you're basically telling us there's now an application for keyword stuffing tools. Is that what you're telling us?
There's a what?
There's a application for keyword stuffing tools.
Okay, so like I said, there are about 8 or 9 patents that initially came out, and then there's been a second generation of patents from Google that shows how they might implement all of this. So I've got some faith. I overheard something once somewhere that seemed to make this more realistic and likely than that. But that second set, like 8 or 9 or 10 patents after the first set, says, yeah, and the quickness with which they hired her back, there's something to this, and I've experimented with it a bit and played around and seen some good things happen. But one of the patents said there were like 8 or 9. One of the patents was using phrase-based indexing to identify spam. So if you have too many phrases that tend to appear, as if you're like scraping everybody's site and putting it all on one page, you're keyword stuffing, you're spamming. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's that's somewhat, when they talk about using +1 as a differentiator, one of the things they would do would be to take sites that are stuffed and then sites that are more real and let the people, the +1s, differentiate between those things. But then they take that and then adjust the algorithm to filter out the ones that are.
And there are a lot of other user behavior signals you can look at other than +1. How long does it spam the site? How far down do they scroll, which could possibly be something built into Chrome, and other things like that.
Do you use the Wonder Wheel and related search terms that
If you look at the list of related searches that sometimes appear, do a search for baseball stadiums, like Yankee Stadium, Dodger Stadium, something else stadium, and they're not always helpful. You can find some good ones there. But I like this, doing it this way because, like I said, I get 3 tasks accomplished for the price of 1. I get to do my keyword research, find other words I want to look up and so on. I get to identify phrases. I get content development ideas.
Google Correlate will give you some really interesting, like, it's kind of hard to explain exactly what it does, but it gives you some interesting correlations between phrases.
So the main point here is how often do these phrases co-occur on different sites that rank well or something. So correlation. Yeah. So here I'm finding phrases I might want from my pages. Now you can do this while you're developing a page, or you can go to a page that you already have ranking for something. So you're ranking 10th or 11th. Say you're ranking 11th for something. You want to be in the front page. And you know, the term you rank for, you look up, you look at the other sites, you say, you know, what do they have that I don't have here? What other phrases might, which ones seem to be related? And you can include those on your page, maybe add a little bit more content. I've seen that make a difference. You can use the related phrases you find in links pointing to the page too, and that's not a bad idea. If you're targeting one specific phrase or page, you don't necessarily want every link you have pointing to that page using that same anchor text. It's good to mix it up. It's good to get variety, and having related links that you know Google may think are related can help. If you have some pages elsewhere, say you want to not only have the first result or the second result or the top 3 results for your page showing up for the name of your business. You want to have your Facebook page or your Mana page or so on. Think about including some terms that might appear to be related to the name of your business or to the name of what you do. Include those in those profiles. And don't use too many of the related terms because Google will think you're keyword stuffing.